Hold
I'm
on.
with
Okay,
you.
here we go. Primitive
Oh,
Substance,
yes.
Series 2. The Wizard, the electronic wizard Tim Blake is back for part 2 of our
Well, yeah.
conversation, all the
After
way from France.
after a lot of shoveling,
Oh boy, yeah.
after a lot of shoveling, and it's been a very hot day as well today.
Oh, I'm
So
sorry to hear that, but getting closer to
no, we
fall.
like
So,
it.
oh, you like it,
You
huh?
know, we like good weather.
Yeah.
This is Aquitaine. You know, it's supposed to be good weather, and we've not had it that good this year. So
So let's
a
get
nice
back to
day, a nice
your
day.
your solo career, amazing records, Crystal Machine, New Jerusalem. How did you come up with the? Where'd you get how'd you get the idea for these records and where you got these amazing synthesizers?
Well, we were discussing the past with Gong,
Okay, right.
but before I was actually making records and performing with Gong, I'd already started playing synthesizer. Uh,
Okay.
and I was basically at the beginning of everything, I just had the EMS. And then I had two. And when I was in Gong, I got the Moog. So if you want to talk about my solo music, well,
Right.
there is some music on this
Oh,
uh,
okay.
that comes from pre-Gong period. They wrote 73, but there's some 72 music there too.
Oh, okay.
So what do you do when you're a musician and you have an instrument you tend to play? And the whole thing that was difficult was recording outside of any kind of musical institution.
Okay.
Uh, but by the time I rejoined Gong, I already had this famous cassette, uh, which we called Crystal Machin. In French, that means crystal thingamajig, uh, because it was fun being Crystal Machine and doing Crystal Machin. That's kind of our
Okay.
sense of humor. But so I was already making tape music and doing before interrupting everything and working with Gong again.
Got it.
And but do you have ideas? I don't know I don't know how it works. The imaginative,
Hmm.
you know, uh, it's just that's what you do.
Yeah.
Now, Crystal Machine, uh,
This right here, right? Crystal Machine.
oh well, you've got well, yeah, much better than me moving my camera about. Yes,
Yep.
yes, very good, Dennis. You'll do the advertising.
There you
Uh,
go.
and Crystal Machine was just a collection of what I was doing, both pre and post Gone.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
and there was no intention of making a record or anything like that. But I was also, because to do our shows, we were using a technology that at the time, cost enormous amount of money. I
I can
mean,
imagine.
enormous. Uh, Today, you can buy a laser that's that big and will put out kind of 5 watts of laser light.
Mm.
Back in the day, to get anything over 1 watt you're dealing with a huge tube of double blown glass filled with
Imagine.
inert gas and electrodes and a
Hmm.
power supply and the whole thing water cooled, right? These things
Wow.
cost a fortune. I
Oh,
think
I'm sure it does.
uh, I don't do dollars, but let's say we're looking at $20,000.
Oh, wow. Now, who was sponsoring this? The record
And
label? All that, the lasers,
no,
and
no,
you
no, no,
guys?
I wasn't making records, and
Okay.
uh, I was personata non grata with
Got it.
Virgin because as a result of our work with Virgin, Virgin
Right.
became interested in all my colleagues from Germany. And they didn't want me messing up their scene of Tangerine Dream or Klaus.
Of
Huh?
course.
So I was well out of record companies. And so what we had to do is Patrice and I used all of the technology and lighting we used and worked for companies, evénementiel companies,
Good. Right.
Uh, and oh, sorry about that. That's
Go ahead.
rural internet for you. And how can I say this? Uh, we found ourselves one day doing projection over the 24 hours of Le Mans
Got it.
race. You know this race, yes?
Right.
And our race, so there's possibly night. And although it's always in June, so the night is longer, uh, we would be projecting all night long on what was probably the biggest screen ever built, because we built 1,000 square meter screen
Oh,
on that
okay.
occasion. And we're doing this with music, and in the music, there's a lot of mine.
Hmm.
And all of a sudden, a guy who I didn't know came up to me and said, "You're Tim Blake, aren't you?" And I said, "You know, yeah, are you a policeman?"
Yes.
And he said, "No, I'm a record company."
Ah, how about that?
And he said, "This is your music." I said, "Yes." He said,
Hmm.
"Have you got some more of this?" And I said, "Yes." He said, "Come and see me next week." So I went to see him next week, and what was Barclay was France's largest independent record company. It's now
Okay.
swallowed up. It's all swallowed up into Universal, but
Okay.
in those days it was still a private record company.
Oh,
And
how
it
about that?
happened they they had been distributing Virgin at the beginning, and so they
Right.
knew all about me, you know,
Right.
and they didn't have anything to do with that kind of music. Barclay Records was Jacques Brel
Oh, I see.
or Aznavour, the French variety artists which had the whole show to
Got it.
themselves for years. Even as Gong, we were definitely alternative because we built our own circuit to tour on. It was
Okay.
marginal. And they said, "Yeah, but we want to make a label doing progressive European music, and we'd love you to be our first record."
Oh, how
Actually, I
about that?
wasn't their first record. I think
Okay.
I think Vangelis got there before me.
Okay.
He normally does. He had a better car, you know. But so we made this album and we
Hmm.
put it out on Egg, which was a Barclay sub label.
How about that?
And
And then,
and then all of a sudden, Crystal Machine is on on the record market. Now, that being said, just look at the cover of Crystal. Huh? I mean, that's taken from a gig.
okay. And did you tour?
Uh,
Did you have a
we're
tour?
slowing up, aren't we? Well,
No, okay, I see. Now, did you tour Europe with the Crystal Machine during that time when you made that record? Was there, or did you just play a few
what,
shows
what,
in
if you,
France?
what I was trying to say, show everybody the cover of Crystal Machine, Dennis,
There
please.
you go. There it is.
You see,
Fantastic
this
record.
is a stage setup from
Right?
a show.
Wow, how
Huh?
about that?
And
Beautiful.
we were lucky enough, we, we were lucky enough to do this
There's the back.
show
Beautiful picture.
for a whole week in a
Right?
theater in Paris. And
Oh,
that was the
wow.
second time we did it. And we did all of that shit without record company support, you know?
Hmm.
And when we put the record out, we did do quite a lot of touring with a slightly less sophisticated show because that took about 4 days to set up the Palace
Oh,
shows,
wow.
you know?
Yeah, it looked like a lot of stuff.
But we started trucking with one big laser and the synths and a PA, and we went round France, and
Yep.
before you could say Jack Robinson, we were in Spain and Japan
Oh,
and everywhere.
wow.
And
Wow. Huh.
that's a period that finished. Right, I'd already gone on and made New Jerusalem, but that period finished in
There you go.
1979
There you
when
go.
I headlined at Glastonbury.
Oh, I
So,
see.
you know, I would say that from 75 to 79, yes, we were doing a lot of touring, and Crystal Machine was made before Barclay came to see me,
Got it.
but afterwards we made New Jerusalem, you know,
Oh,
which
I
was
see.
actually made in the studio properly.
One of my favorite records, electronic records of all time. And it really sounds beautiful. It really, the,
Well, I don't know. I can't say if things are good or bad. Well, that's Barclay Studio in Paris with me sitting in there, with me
oh,
sitting in there. Huh? That's why I mixed New Jerusalem, and I actually recorded the piece New Jerusalem there as well.
now was all the sequencing done on the
Because
EMS?
you know,
It was the sequencing done on New Jerusalem? A lot of it through the EMS synthesizers at that time.
no,
Especially,
no, it depends what kind of sequence. Um, I used analog sequencing for bass lines,
okay.
uh, and the digital sequence. If you take Lighthouse, for example, there's a da 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 da
Right,
da.
right.
That's EMS sequence, okay? But if you take New Jerusalem, da 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 dum, that's analog sequencing because
Got it.
all this music had to be playable live.
Oh yeah, that's something. And you played that live,
You know,
right, New Jerusalem?
oh
The
yes,
song?
yes. I don't like playing it live by myself, but when John Phillips around, there's no problem. And though I don't use that kind of equipment anymore,
No, I
uh,
imagine not.
I could rebuild the old Crystal Machine and perform on it, yes, because everything I know where it is, and everyone has already suggested, if ever you need to borrow it, you know.
There you go. Now with those EMS, they're really expensive now. Those synthesizers, they're really up there in price. You buy one of those now, they're in the thousands of dollars. I know. Brian,
27,000 euros. That's
wow,
about $30,000.
wow. I know Brian Eno used it in Roxy Music, those early Roxy Music records. I remember watching some video of that.
Yeah,
So,
well, Eno's an EMS person.
oh, is he? Okay. So when did you
Mm.
join? When did you join Hawkwind? Was that after the solo records here?
Well, look,
And then did you?
officially, I joined Hawkwind in 1979.
Okay.
Huh? We'd done this huge tour of Crystal Machine. We had gone around France,
Wow.
to Spain,
Hmm.
to Holland, a couple of gigs in England, then the Glastonbury gig, and then we went back to Holland again and we're doing concerts in the parks in Holland, which is really nice. And how can I say this? When I got back from Holland in the summer of 79, so Glastonbury being June, I would say kind of July,
Right.
I was saying to my partner at the time, God, this is a lot of work. You know, I'm the manager, I'm the artist, I'm the composer and the producer. If the phone rang and someone offered me a job playing in a band, I
Yeah.
think I'd accept it. And the minute I said that, the phone rang and it was Douglas, the manager of Hawkwind, on the telephone.
Oh, how about that? Huh.
But
That's something.
if you look on my Facebook page, I found a photo of me on stage of Hawkwind in 1970. So,
Oh,
you
wow.
know,
Hmm.
unofficially, I mean, I opened the door on Hawkwind. Didn't we discuss this in our
Oh,
last?
yeah. Yeah. Now I wanted to know,
Right.
did you videotape the like entire concerts of your Crystal Machine shows? Because I saw clips of some of your shows, but not a full
Video,
concert.
videotaping didn't exist in those days.
Right. That's too bad.
Right. There is
That's
some
too bad.
film of the 1977 Palace concert, but
Hmm.
I've never seen it. But
Okay.
we did have some film taken, but I've never seen what was. They're probably waiting for me to die and bring it out. Uh, but then videotaping. I met one guy with a video. There's a couple of clips from that period from a concert we did where someone rocked up with what the first video camcorder I'd ever seen.
Okay.
And there is, but it's short little things. It was kind of
Right.
whoops, and that was all, you know.
I
Uh,
saw some of
but
that on. And YouTube has some clips of your show.
everything else is television.
Right.
You know, everything else is documented from television. But
Okay.
obviously, if we had to do it again, it would need to be filmed. Yeah.
Now you were in Hawkwind. How long did you stay with Hawkwind? Was it a pretty long span of time you played with them?
Well, in 1979, we did the 10th anniversary of Hawkwind, okay,
Right.
which was
Right.
a tour. Then, which made Live 79 as an
Okay.
album. Then in 1980, we made Levitation.
Got it. Okay.
And at that time, my then girlfriend was expecting a child,
Okay.
and I said no to go back on tour, and that didn't please. And I had my hands twisted a bit, and I
Right.
went on tour to do the Levitation tour with Ginger Baker playing drums.
How about
And
that? That's something.
and about the fifth concert, we had a miscarriage, so I fucked off,
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
you know. And
Hmm.
but I managed to fuck off without it being too much of a drama because Dave is still one of my oldest friends. You know, I mean, we've known each other for 55 years. You know,
Wow. What was it like working with Ginger Baker? Was he an irritable character? Was he a nice guy? I mean, uh, how was he to work with?
Eric Clapton in the film Beware of Mr. Baker.
Yeah, I saw
He
that.
said, he says, Ginger is my brother forever. He's also
Oh.
the most antisocial person I've ever met. You know,
Oh,
and Ginger
oh my
is
God.
a terror, but I never had a hard word from him.
Okay.
And just after he died, someone showed me an interview from a music magazine of Ginger Baker,
Right.
and it was by Chris Welch, who was a melody maker journalist at the time.
Okay.
And he says, have you ever tried electronic drums? Ginger said, nah. What for? Typical
No, what
answer
for,
of
right?
Ginger.
Oh yeah.
And he said, but I've played with Tim Blake.
There you go.
And Tim Blake can make rhythmic patterns that I can play on for hours.
Yeah, I'm sure.
You know, and I've never heard Ginger compliment anybody ever.
Oh my gosh.
You
I'm not
know,
surprised.
it really was a complete surprise. And of course, stupid guy died before I got to read that because he's actually saying, I think I'll make my next record with Tim, but he doesn't know that yet.
Oh, okay. How about
You
that?
know, so it's, you know, I've known Ginger as a musician
Right.
since I was a teenager, you know, and
Yeah.
every band I would listen to, he was playing drums in.
How about that? He was an
You
amazing
know,
drummer. I mean,
Graham Bond,
oh
John
yeah.
Mayall, then on to you know, every single
Everybody.
band
Right.
that I went to to watch as a kid, he was playing drums in. So actually playing with him for me was a great joy.
Yeah.
And we had a couple of mutual friends. Diane Bond came
Okay.
out with Gong at one point, you know,
Right.
because David couldn't hold drummers basically, and so there's a lot of changes in drumming, and we should have had Ginger Baker. He would have sent him. You'd have whopped him one, and that would have been it for David.
How
You
about
know,
that?
but you know, he really was. I never had a problem with Ginger.
Hmm.
Always enjoyed his company, and I'll have to say that on my last but one concert with Hawkwind, Eric came along to play with us because he's a
Okay.
very old friend of Dave Brock's. They used to busk together when Eric was young,
Right.
and well, the end of that meeting was the famous guitar player everyone loves, Eric Clapton,
How
in
about
my
that?
arms, having a cry on my shoulder. And why were we having this? Because he had been to see Ginger 2 days before he died.
Oh wow. Didn't know that.
You know,
Oh, that's
oh
too
yeah,
bad. Well,
yeah.
but
That was an amazing emotional moment. In fact, you know.
I imagine that's something. Now you started. Did you do more? Then you did more solo records after Hawkwind starting in the 90s? Did you start creating music again for your own, or have you been
Well,
constantly recording?
um, I did something else after Hawkwind because I didn't want to go on tour.
Right.
Huh? And I am a technician. Huh? I started out as a sound engineer and I became interested in radio.
Okay.
And I also became interested in computers. And
Okay.
my first music computer, you literally had to type in the music, right?
Right.
And it was a very long process. But to make a piece of music that lasted 15 seconds,
There you
it was
go.
just the job.
Hmm.
So I started selling jingles to radio stations in
Oh.
81 when Francois
Okay.
Mitterrand became president of France. Uh,
Right.
we started allowing pirate radios to get a license, basically.
Okay.
And so I started selling jingles to radio stations.
Oh, how about that?
And before I knew anything, I found myself for 10 years a technical director of a radio station.
Oh,
And
okay. Hmm.
and I made magic during that period.
How about that? Never knew
Uh,
that.
uh, but uh,
So, so you were able to make
I'm
money with
just
that,
wondering.
right?
By the time I did Tide of a Century, I've finished with
Okay.
that. I did do this for 10 years. It didn't. It wasn't a choice of music, or I did 2 tours of America.
Okay.
Yeah, very small tours, but tours all the same. Uh,
Right.
so because
That,
magic. The idea to put Magic out as a
that's a
CD,
great record.
the fir- the first version. Well, I'm glad you said that because it's
It
quite
is.
a hard experiment because
It's a very good
that's
record.
recorded. That's recorded live.
Oh, it is. Okay. I didn't know
Uh,
that.
a lot of programming beforehand, but
Right.
it's recorded live. It's on a DAT. 1, 2, 3, go.
Oh, okay.
And
Hmm.
which is not easy, and
No.
uh, and so uh, not everybody likes it. I mean, some people love it, some people don't. But that's the same with everything.
Yeah,
You
it's
can't
true.
please everybody all the
No,
time.
you can't. I
But
know.
uh, yeah, but Magic was made during that period when I was actually the director of a leisure
Oh,
company to
okay.
speak American.
No, we would never know that about Tim Blake. That is something that our listeners would probably say, "Wow, that's something." So that kept you make it at least had an income there, and then you were still able to dabble at home,
Well,
right? While
that's what
yeah.
pays my pension, to be quite honest, because
How about
music
that?
doesn't.
No,
Yeah.
it's very tough these days. I don't know. I
Well,
think you.
this is because Gong was a ripoff.
Yep.
Now it's possible in this country to be a musician and to be employed for one day. We call this intermittence de spectacle. Not be a self-employed person, but
Right.
be employed by the gig for one day, uh,
Right.
and then next day you're going somewhere else and you're employed by somebody else for one day.
Right.
And that, so now, musicians in France, at least, it's not the case in England. It's not right, but they're considered self-employed. And believe you me, you're playing in a band like Hawkwind, you're certainly not self-employed.
No.
Uh,
No.
you know, you're employed by Hawkwind. But That's not the way the English do it. But nowadays, musicians in France can get a pension.
Oh, okay. Didn't know that.
You know, and I
Love
go as
that.
far as to say the guy who is an expert at this is Didier.
Yeah.
And
Well,
being a jazz
of course.
player, being a jazz player, you know, he would get, you come in to play tonight, okay, and you get nothing like $100 or something, you know,
Right.
but, and all your social charges.
Yeah.
You know, so it's now a healthy, it's a healthy profession since the
But
80s
but
in
people used to
France.
buy
But
people used to buy a lot of record. Now I think you have to play live to sell your merchandise these days. I mean, you grab so many free records off the internet these days. It's tough for a musician these days. It's young.
well, I'll tell you something. I'll tell you something. Right. Uh, all my recordings up to a few years ago,
Okay.
I sold to Cherry Red.
Okay.
That's why I live in a beautiful house in the country, basically.
Oh, that's great.
And you know, and have a real piano. Yeah, I mean it's
So a company bought your your recordings and put it out and gave you some money, right?
yes, but quite a bit of
That's
money.
great. That's nice.
Yeah, but I don't earn from those records. I earn my author's royalties, but
Okay.
they belong to them. The performances are sold, you know.
Okay.
But that's, I mean, you must have heard this. This is happening to much bigger stars than me. Bob Dylan, I believe, he sold his catalog for
Yeah.
$850 million. You know,
Bruce Springsteen, I think, was like
it,
500 million, something crazy amount. The boss, Bruce
yeah.
Springsteen.
Neil Young was 300.
Wow.
You know, I mean, it's
Crazy
happening
money.
more and more. And in a world where musicians don't get pensions, it's a fucking good thing it happens.
Yeah. Oh, but you're talking about such a rare amount of percentage of people that, you know, get that money. So most of the musicians out there are just still trying hard. Like the song we recorded 40 years ago, the song Cavern, you know, we were making money on
What,
it.
what is sure about what you said just now
Right.
is back in the day, we would lose money on touring
Yup, we would.
to
Yup,
promote
that's right. That's
records.
true. You would. We would. Yup.
But in today's world, you make more money out of concerts than look at your American singer who, in my opinion, has got everything right in her business plan, though
Right.
I've never heard her music. Taylor Swift,
Oh, yeah.
her tour has grossed a considerable amount of money.
Oh, I'm sure.
You know,
I
I mean,
$1 billion. I don't
playing
know.
Wembley Stadium 5 days. Ooh, you know,
Yeah, it's marketing and business and the right you know, she's got it down how to get the
why I say I like a business plan is because after 3 years in the music industry, she just got rid of her records, remade
Right.
them herself, and has kept propriety. So when Taylor Swift is tired, someone's going to give her a big check too.
Oh yeah. You know that. That's for sure.
Yeah.
And I don't
You
think I
know,
don't know one Taylor Swift song. Do you? I don't know
well, I
one
mean,
Taylor Swift song.
no,
Tell you
neither
the
do I.
truth.
But if you look
You
at
don't have to. It's a big
if you
marketing
look
thing.
at Gong, if you look at Gong, Flying Teapot, and Gong Angel's Egg, both these records were made before we signed to Virgin.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So No, no one does. So
How
by
come
all
that?
rights, these albums belong to the musicians who made them. No way. They
Okay.
belong to EMI. Well, not even
Oh, okay.
Universal now. And I said, 1 minute, we must talk about this. They said, do you want to sue us? Yeah, Universal only employ lawyers.
Oh, about that.
They don't have accountants, they don't have anyone else working for them. They're just,
No.
a media empire. So
Right.
actually belongs to a French water company. And
Yeah. Right.
believe you me, I get water bills which are far more than my royalty checks from Virgin.
I imagine so. I mean, did you split the royalties with Gong, or was it mostly David that got the publishing rights to that, or was that all Virgin at that time?
Look, I'm the only person who says this.
Okay.
David was a very professional copyright fraud.
Oh boy, that's too bad.
He's never written a note of music in his life. He's ruined a lot of good music with his stupidness. And
Right.
his professional thing is to fuck off and leave other people holding the debt.